Welcome to Heaven's Edge. What form of nutrient exchange is appropriate for your lifestyle?
An ale, I guess?
Sympathizing ale?
Alright, thanks. Let's try it. It's actually pretty good.
Attention Spacers, welcome back to another thrilling episode of Adventures in the Void. We are a sci-fi tabletop role-playing game discussion transmission. I am Jake.
And I'm Ross.
Join us as we trade tales and celebrate the beauty and wonder of the cosmos.
Greetings and welcome again to the Adventures in the Void Spacecast. My name is Ross McClure, and here at Heaven's Edge Cantina we chat about independent science fiction tabletop role-playing games. Tonight I'm joined by two brothers, who are independent game designers that make indie sci-fi tabletop RPG adventures. And tonight we're going to talk about some of them. Mark and Jason Hess of Wood Planet Gaming Lodge. Jason and Mark, thanks for joining us. Tell us about yourself, especially in terms of related to the tabletop role-playing game hobby. Who are you? Tell us about your company.
My name is Jason Hess, and I guess we've been role-playing for like 30 years or so. Star Wars D6, Call of Cthulhu, and now in the last 2 years this OSR stuff, specifically White Star, a little bit of Lamentations, a snippet of Swords and Wizardry. But when it comes to the company, to Wood Planet Gaming Lodge, that was an idea that was created years upon years ago, probably 2012 or 13. But wow. It was not with the intent to publish stuff at the time. It was more of just a website where we would write blog articles about stuff and review games and yada yada yada, do interviews with Kickstart creators and stuff like that. And we didn't really know what the heck it was supposed to be, but we just took the name Wood Planet Gaming Lodge because of some childhood stuff, and it was kind of the name of the unofficial name of our family games and all that stuff. And we wanted to do something with it, but then when my brother here got me into OSR, it made sense, and he was already publishing some stuff. It made sense to just make Wood Planet become this thing, which is where it's at now, making releases. But my brother can share some stuff about that.
Mark, I know you all have several things you've released now. What are some of the products and titles that you all put out?
Well, I've been gaming like since the 90s and whatnot. And like he said, we played Star Wars D6 and a lot of Call of Cthulhu. And then when I got into the OSR, Lamentations, like I really like that. It's the grittiness and the artwork and the mature theme. So I've released, I think, 6 things now for Lamentations. And the first few were just like some adventures. But the one I'm really proud of is called Colony of Death. It's like a setting and hex crawl, there's maps, there's random encounters, and it's set in colonial Maryland.
Wow.
Which fits the time period for Lamentations, and it's local area where I'm from. So I was able to like do some research on local cryptids and history, and it was pretty cool to make this. And then I've made a couple things that go along with it, another adventure, a timeline for the 1600s, and that was all stuff compatible with Lamentations or any OSR, but a lot of it's set in the 1600s. And then we got into White Star, and we've done the Vespoids adventure, the the Brutes and Mystics Expanded as like a supplemental character book, and then we did the deck of cards, the booster deck, and the Altron book is coming out soon. That's another big setting book with our homebrewed stuff that we've grown up playing and creating. And some of the ideas for Altron were from back when before we even role played, when we were just kids making up superhero stories and stuff. So it's pretty cool. Like, we've taken stuff from our childhood and we're putting it into game material and releasing it out for other people to mess with. So it's been pretty fun.
Yeah, we're talking taking stuff from like 1989
Wow.
and dragging it forward into role-playing purposes. Back when it was all playing with G.I. Joes and other little 3.5-inch tall action figures and making this world up.
Wow, that is really cool. I'm interested. Can you give me like a summary of what is Defenders of Ultron? Like, especially like some of the people who we kind of target this podcast to are people on the internet, or if they're looking at podcasts. And there are a lot of people that are, even now, they're still either they're finding their way into the hobby via the internet, or they're in the brand mainstream hobby. And the purpose of this is to say, hey, there's an entire world out there of imagination where you can approach this very differently and in any way that works for you. So if someone, and let's say that, think of someone who they're just now looking at this. They're thinking about White Star RPG, which I want to get to in a minute. But what is Defenders of Ultron? Like, what is as kind of like a summary? I can tell from looking at it. The people, they can't see this, but I can see you're showing me. It has that kind of iconic White Star RPG interior too. It's really clean. I can see that in the table of contents there. So.
Yeah. We tried to make it look like the Galaxy Edition book, like try to keep that same theme rolling.
Well, that and borrowing some idea of how the old classic Star Wars D6s looked too, is in some of the ideas from that. So yeah, that was very intentional. As far as what Defenders of Ultron is, of course, White Star is the rule set or the rule system or whatever. So Defenders of Ultron is just a compatible book for it, and it's a planetary setting, and it's the first of at least two, and who knows, maybe there'll be another, but there's at least a follow-up to this. But Defenders of Ultron, like I said, it's a planetary setting based in our galaxy, the M83 galactic setting, but you can pull it out and drop it in your own homebrew galaxy or whatever. But it's essentially a solar system, and it focuses primarily on the main planet, the planet of Ultron, and it talks about their governmental structure, and it goes into what the various species that are on the planet and some of the creatures. It's got a 3-part mini campaign in it and such. Some interesting things about Ultron itself. The civilization is they're essentially created beings. They're clones or whatever, but they're randomized clones, so they don't reproduce, and like every couple thousand years they do a whole new generation of them. So there's first generation Ultronians, and then there's the second generation Ultronians, and their ability to play those characters are in the book depending on which one you want. Of course, if you play first gen, you're going to be extremely old, and then we got a couple classes in there. So again, it's a planetary setting that just kind of gives a broad idea of just the governmental setting with the High Emperor and the various how did you call it, I can't remember how.
Bureaucratic grandeur or something.
Yeah, just the grandeur of the bureaucratic nonsense of this government. Like, everything's a ministry. In the back, there's a bunch of adventure seed ideas, and we laid out, like, I think 20 of the ministries in adventure seeds for them, of these various governmental things that could reach out to you for work or whatever. And so yeah, it's a planetary setting where you can base out of, you can visit, and maybe we'll expand on the broader solar system, because there's things with each of the planets, and they're briefly mentioned, but we don't go into the other planets in the solar system in the book. It's all just focused there on Altron. But
Okay, so is it fair to call this like this is a science fiction, like a setting book? So you have and then it has a campaign. You've got adventure seeds, and then it's going to go into detail in Altron. So would you say that this is something that could be modular for someone's science fiction setting, that they could just put it in? Is it something that somebody could add to an existing campaign?
I would say you could definitely add it into anything you wanted, or it could be standalone. And it's got new classes, new races, some monsters and stuff, and you, like he said, you can like visit it, make it part of your campaign, or it could just be a one shot, or you could base your whole campaign out of there.
Yeah, and while we do have like a timeline of events, a lot of, any DM's going to do what they want. Like,
sure,
some of that stuff is not so. For us, it's embedded, but for you, if you wanted to run it and you're like, I could care less about the Scree Empire or any of these things, like, just saw that off, and it doesn't actually hinder the flow of the game or mess with anything, and you're fine.
I was just going to say, you can pick it apart as you please, or just take, with any OSR thing, do what you want with it. Use it as it is, or take it apart and use pieces of it.
And it has, so it sounds like it even has tools in addition to, like the setting content. Did you say there are additional classes for White Star in it as well?
Yeah, there's Altron specific races and classes. So
cool.
you could use the ones from the main rule book, but you could also make an Altronian character based from this planet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you, Mark, you had mentioned that, so you love the old school Renaissance, and then Jason, you said that, so Mark kind of brought you into this old school Renaissance, and when we say that, what we mean, in case someone's unfamiliar with that, is a sort of looking back to games, especially in the late 70s and early 80s, and finding things that have since not been used as much in modern RPGs. In particular, things like not relying on a pre-written plot, and instead just having situations that people can explore with freedom and agency, minimalism, tension and danger. Oftentimes it's much more dangerous or lethal, and reliance more on imagination instead of mechanics and character sheets and things like that. But the old school Renaissance scene has all kinds of content and games. In fact, one thing that comes to mind is you mentioned West End Games D6's Star Wars. Is there's like Open D6, the open system for West End Games D6 and D6 Space, and there's of course there's Nevermind Traveler. You've got Kevin Crawford's system, Stars Without Number. There's a huge amount of science fiction content actually in the old school Renaissance, which is really cool because that's actually something kind of lacking in the brand hobby, where you'll you have maybe Starfinder, there's not a lot of especially operatic kind of like space opera kind of science fiction or high or hard sci-fi. So my question would be, why White Star RPG? Like, why did you pick that in particular, or is this a game that is part of your home game? Like, what is it that you like about White Star in particular?
Well, with me, when I discovered it and I started playing it, I was like, man, this game is awesome. It feels like old Star Wars D6, but it was simpler because you didn't have to roll all these D6s and stuff. So I don't know. To me, it felt very much like that game. And then when I introduced Jason to it, he felt the same way. Like, we loved it. It's just an easy game. It is OSR, so it's quick and simple rules. You can get playing. It is deadly, but that's part of the fun of it, and you can gauge that however you want. If you want to pull down the deadliness some, you can. But yeah, I don't know. I love White Star. It's their take on stuff. Like, it's instead of Jedi, you have Star Knights. You know, they made it a little bit more generic, and then of course you can change that and put it into your game, and that's what it encourages you to do, is to pick it apart and use it for your games. And they have everything. They got Transformers in there. They got, of course, they're not called that. They got, you know, Star Trek references, Star Wars references. I just thought it was awesome. So,
Doctor Who references.
yeah. So we're like, we love all that stuff. So it was a nice generic way to bring all that stuff in there together without, you know, stepping on IPs and stuff.
Yeah, that's true too.
We already do all that in our home games anyways.
Right.
We would just kind of mix and mash. Like, prime example, when we were playing, for a long time, we had an ongoing Call of Cthulhu / Doctor Who campaign that we played for years upon years. So we've always just mixed and mashed and threw stuff together.
Great. Yeah, and then White Star, it's like, you know, you're like, well, this is what we do.
And then when you have these OSR things that let you use their compatibility thing, so it was like, oh, we can actually make games for this game that we like. So why don't we take our stuff and you know, put the White Star stuff on it and set it to their stats and everything, and it came out pretty awesome.
Yeah, Spawn James is very generous in allowing people to make that the compatible products and stuff for White Star. And, you know, I mean, I don't know if you've had many conversations with him, but he's a joy to talk to or whatever. And so it was cool that opportunity or capability or what possibility exists to make these third-party things that are compatible.
Yeah, that's something awesome about the OSR, where, you know, we can all work together and use each other's stuff to some extent. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, James is great, and that is true, I think, about the old school Renaissance creators as well, like yourselves, is that there's this, maybe that's actually another pillar or principle of the old school Renaissance is open collaboration, like a willingness to just freely share and openly collaborate and kit bash and find the parts of things that others are doing and put it in the things that you know what you're doing. And yeah, that is really special, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how Mark got involved with the Lamentation stuff, is because there's that third-party compatibility opportunities there. And I mean,
yeah, like several years ago, you wouldn't have been able to just publish something like that. So it's pretty cool with the internet and the technology and these compatibility license. Like, you can go ahead and make something for that system and put it out, and that's awesome.
It's opened up the possibilities of all kinds of things. Like, you know, you're currently doing the actual play of the Invasion of the Vespoids, and I have kicked around an idea with my brother of taking that adventure and reskinning it for Mouse Ritter.
Ooh,
you know,
be
because
fun.
that's another system that allows that sort of, you know, third-party content or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of companies are doing that now.
Yeah, and that's awesome, because it I think that just strengthens the community, right? It just adds just a sense of that you're valued as far as what you can bring to the table, and not like a threat, because it's, hey, everybody bring your bread to the table, as me and Mark's dad likes to say.
Yeah,
and with the OSR, some of this third-party stuff that, you know, somebody made in their bedroom and put it up for $1 is better than the Wizards of the Coast stuff coming out. I would rather see third-party products, because, you know, they're doing some innovative stuff. Some of them, it's pretty crazy, some of the ideas and things that come out of the OSR. But, you know, you couldn't publish that with Wizards of the Coast. Good luck.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think that's something that maybe people that are either looking into the hobby initially, or if they're currently in the brand hobby, that's something that might be surprising, because that can't be said of some industries where maybe the cost of operation or something makes it so that the brands are effective at creating the best products. You wouldn't want, like that's almost to say something is off-brand means that it's not good. But an interesting thing in this hobby is it is in some ways really a mirror opposite or an inverse of that. Like I just saw you held up that book, and that binding and layout is better organized, and the binding is better than a $60 brand product. And I don't know, but I bet it costs less. than a brand product. But actually the purpose of this play club and of this podcast, actually what we talk about is folk RPGs, which the idea being the distinction we make would be a brand product would be like Pokemon or maybe Marvel, like someone owns it and you sort of negotiate with that brand holder, and you can be a fan of it, but you are participating in a brand. Whereas a folk hobby, I compare to something like fishing, which no one owns, and no one can tell you how to do it. You can have brand products for fishing, but fishing belongs to everybody. Everybody gets to do it,
right?
And and anybody can make something for fishing, and it's something much more archaic and primal and broader, and it can't be controlled by a brand or something like that. So I agree with that, and that is a really fun thing to get to collaborate with people and talk to people about this stuff and share. Okay, so the upcoming book, it's Defenders of Altron, right?
Yeah.
Coming soon, and Invasion of the Vespoids, just talking about the White Star RPG products, but I think this applies also. Lamentations of the Flame Princess, certainly also true. But in particular, since we're going to have the actual play of the Invasion of the Vespoids on the podcast, and then we're going to do a review of White Star RPG, let's say someone gets Invasion of the Vespoids or your setting book. What is some advice that you would give to someone? Now, this is somebody who they're a person on the internet, and they're coming into the hobby, or they're playing Pathfinder or 5e. They're in the brand hobby, and they're going to break into these indie games and these minimalist games, these more open-ended games. What is some advice that you would have for someone playing in one of these adventures?
I guess I would say immediately is don't just be bound by what I wrote or Mark wrote, and if it doesn't fit with your game, then toss that piece out the window and just make it fit however it works for you. Have fun with it. I mean, at least for me, getting into the OSR, that's the beautiful thing that I found. It's like it's really hard to just crash and destroy these adventures because in the OSR stuff, just because they're not a 70-page adventure like you would get for Call of Cthulhu, right? Where it's if you miss this spot hidden, the whole adventure's blown. You don't have to worry about that stuff. So
it's pretty light, so you can smash it up. It's not going to break it. It's a 10-page adventure. It's kind of like do what you want with it, but I don't know, somebody coming into the hobby, it's weird because I've played for 30 years, so it's hard to remember what it was like not to know what role-playing was.
It's probably really different now, too, because people coming in will have expectations, and they'll have a bit of programming of, well, this is what I've heard or what I know, almost inevitably.
Don't expect critical role levels of acting or anything like that. And then I know modern day games, it's kind of like you're this superhero and you start out as a superhero. You got to get rid of that idea. Like you're a normal person and you have to work your way up. If you survive, you might become awesome, but you got 6 hit points and you're not that tough at level 1. But that aspect of it, I like that. Like your character might die, but that's okay. If he dies in a cool, interesting, or funny way, that's part of it. Like embrace that.
Yeah, the fragility of the characters is, for me, I find it's one of them beautiful aspects of OSR and even Call of Cthulhu, which you cut a teeth on, is that you have to be more engaged with the story of what's going on instead of just approaching it like a video game.
Right.
You have to instead want to build the world, build the story. If your character dies, like Mark said, if you know, it's how did they die, the impact that they die, because it only takes a couple seconds to roll up another character. That doesn't diminish that you might have thought this was the greatest character you ever made, but you know, they're going to leave some kind of impact if you're playing the game, a campaign, and you're allowing that world building to occur, where you see it as, okay, it's a stepping stone. You know, so
And it seems like when there's a chance that you can die, you have to play smarter. You have to be more cautious. You have to rely on teamwork. You have to, like, did we bring enough rope, and do we have enough rations? Like, that stuff becomes important again. And I like games like that. It's not necessarily more realistic, but I don't know, there's something more genuine about it.
Yeah.
It's like your concerns are more real.
It also offers real choices. So, like, you know, rather than trying to usher you along to a beat, things will matter. You could perish, and this is actually something I say is the fact that you could perish means that you actually have a choice. And to me, having 2 to 6 hit points doesn't mean, this is a little bit of I guess this is an opinion, but I actually don't think it's lethal. I think what it actually means is, because the referee's not trying to kill you, that would just be silly, you know. Instead, they're presenting a situation honestly. And if you choose to rush into a situation and be foolhardy, then you are free to make that choice. And
Right.
you're free to experience the consequences of it. And if you master the world and the things set out in a situation, and make it yours and become the driver of the game as a player, which you can do in these games, well, having 2 hit points won't matter. Or at least it won't signify death. So, yeah.
it's the realizing that, you know, you start out as, you know, the episode 4 Luke Skywalker, and you're watching Obi-Wan get sliced down by Vader, and you have that choice. Are you going to run and fight and help Kenobi, or are you going to get on the Millennium Falcon and just get out of there and wait till Return of the Jedi to face Vader?
Right. Yeah, and I like something you said too, Jason, about these games, and that the way you interface with the game is in the world, in the game. I've heard some people say, like, your character sheet is the world. Whereas sometimes, I agree, I heard Ben Milton say this for the first time, and I really could relate to it. In the Brand game, sometimes it felt like you were not so much an archetypal, mythical fantasy character in a fictional world. It felt more like sometimes like I was a mech pilot, and I had this panel of buttons, and I could, like, press different buttons that would do things. And then things would happen in the world. Or Jason, like you said, like it's like a video game, and you could skip a scene and, like, okay, I'm pressing my next button now. I'm doing my cool thing. And I've even heard pretty well-known designers and talking heads say that, you know, D&D is about the cool abilities you have. And for some people, you know, it is. But I think this style of play offers something different, where the clever choices and interactions and things that you do in the world, what they call diegesis, like what's actually happening in the fiction or the world, is what you can do. Those are your abilities. and then, you know, Mark, when you said, well, having rations matters, that's because it's diegetic. It's something in the fiction. It's inside the world. And if you know, if you're level 1 and you find Excalibur, it doesn't matter if you're level 1. You found it.
Yeah.
That's another thing I often point out is, like, yeah, you have maybe 2 hit points at level 1, but if you find Excalibur at level 1, you can do that too. Like, neither thing, there's not a limit either way. You can also charge the Dragon's Lair at level 1 and get incinerated.
Right. And I like that, not having the game balance stuff where, yeah, there's a dragon, you're level 1, you should run away, but you can do what you want.
You can do what you want.
Yeah.
And then it's the DM didn't kill you; your own bad choices killed you.
Yeah, which might be fun too. My wife likes that. Like, that's fun
Oh,
for her. So,
sometimes that is the fun thing to do. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes a heroic moment, you know that you're going to die, but it feels like it's the organic next step in the story. Like we just played a game that one of my characters, it was this wolfling, and he stood off against the Void Knight, and I knew he was going to just get massacred. But in the context of the story, while we were playing, it felt like it was a worthy sacrifice to let it happen or whatever. And
Yeah.
I full well knew what I was stepping into, but it was that choice of allowing that character Snarl to just
Because it made a good scene.
That's
If
great.
it was a movie, that would have been an epic scene.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's all about, you got role playing and then you got role playing, ROLE and ROLL. And it's like anybody can roll the dice or whatever. And I guess that's fun to an extent, but when you embody the characters and the world and you get into it that way, where then yes, the rations and those things, how much energy cells, how many bullets do you still have in your 6-shooter? When you get into those sort of things, it just, I don't know, it just makes it, it's just a whole nother level instead of just, I have an infinite supply and I'm just.
Yeah, or
Right.
like when the characters start interacting with the town and, they want to build their own places and run businesses and start affecting the world in that way. That I love when they start getting into that. And it's not about your abilities on your sheet. It's about the characters talking to each other, talking to the NPCs, role playing it out. And that's where like some real magic can happen in a role playing game. And it doesn't have anything to do with your hit points or your abilities and stuff. It's the players have to interact with the world and with each other.
We've had games where there's been very minimal roles actually made because it was
Yeah.
all legitimately role playing
you
as
forget.
far as in character. Yeah.
I did a video called "Welcome to the OSR," and there were a couple of one brand new, and then two new players, and then one veteran OSR player, and we did Winter's Daughter, which is this really great OSR adventure, and I was using Old School Essentials, and we got 2 hours and 20 minutes into our first playthrough of it, and got towards the end, and I said, "Do you notice something?" And one of them was like, "I haven't rolled dice." they had forgot because they were just in the world. They were just in the world and interacting with things and pushing and moving things in the fiction and in the adventure. And they forgot they had a character sheet.
Yeah, and while I'm sure it's true for various role-playing games, I find since getting into the OSR, it's so easy to just let it just go. It be what it be. Like you're playing and it's not nowhere near a structure, right? So you can just fly off the cuff and whatever,
Right.
and it just turned out to be fantastic. And it's not, I don't know, like there's something about that that's freeing, but it's just that whole organic, and it just feels totally different.
Yeah, and when you're relying on random encounters and letting the players do stuff, then the DM gets to be surprised as well. Like I didn't plan all this out. Sometimes one random encounter takes the whole night. Like, you didn't plan for that, but that's what we ended up doing. Or letting the players, like they got stuff they want to do, just let them do it and see what happens. And that's another awesome thing about the OSR. Like you never know where the stuff can go. The DM can have fun playing again too, because he doesn't know what's going to happen either.
Right. And honestly, random encounters have a terrible rap, and I think a lot of modern game designers don't understand the point. The way I like to think of them, or at least how I enjoy random encounters or random monsters appearing, is I think of it like an ecosystem. Like, as if, let's say you have a theater production, or some kind of art like that, you have a set outcome, or at least you have an intended outcome, and you know that. But if you go hiking, you don't have an outcome. You don't know what it is. You're just going to go into wilderness, and there's going to be birds, and there's going to be animals, and they're going to do goofy things, and you're going to find something really beautiful in a tree, and you have no idea what you're going to encounter. You just know that there's trees and birds and animals, and they're going to do it. They're going to do stuff, and you're going to have a story and an adventure that's going to arise out of that experience.
Yeah, emergent. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for taking the time to come and tell us about the game. I'm really excited about Defenders of Altron. Can't wait to get my hands on that. Really enjoying the adventure that you all wrote. So if people want to find out about Wood Planet Gaming Lodge, where would they go, and where can they keep an eye on what's coming next and what's going on?
We have a website, www.wpglodge.com. And then, of course, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can just look up Wood Planet Gaming Lodge. Or you can just, they're all, the username or whatever, it's all just WPG Lodge on all those various social medias.
Yeah, it does have all the current products available are on the website.
And you can find all the actual stuff also if you go to just Drive Through RPG and look up Wood Planet Gaming Lodge. If you go to Lulu, you can look up Wood Planet Gaming Lodge and find them.
Great. Okay, well, I'll include that in the description. And thanks a lot for coming and chatting with us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Mythic Mountains RPG is a private online play club that focuses on folk RPGs. Folk RPGs are the games that belong to all of us. They're what actually happens at a table between friends. It's their voice that has the authority on what is fun and what works for them. Weekly, we upload our games to allow others to sit in with us. The channel isn't monetized. We don't own the artwork, music, software, or games shown in these actual plays, and you can find links to their authors in the description. Like, subscribe, and share if you wish, or don't. Just like games in person, you're welcome to pull up a chair, sit in, and watch some of our games. No performances, no fancy equipment, just regular people playing folk pencil and paper role-playing games and having a good time. We hope these games will prove a source of enjoyment to anyone just wanting to listen in, anyone looking for examples of how actual groups run and play folk RPGs, and most importantly, if you haven't found your group yet, you're welcome here at ours.